the pasuk says, "V'haya be'afalchem melechem haaretz." When you eat from the bread of the land, you will bring an offering. You will raise up an offering to Hashem. The first of your dough. Literally, arisa means like a bowl that they would need the dough in. You do atikvas. That's known the exactitude of this language. Why does it have to say the bread of the earth in the pasuk? The kibush is above since this is in continuation to what it says prior to this. When you will come to the land, it should have said when you eat from its bread. In other words, because you already know that you're talking about the land. So you have to say milachma from its bread. Doesn't have to say lechem ba'chalchem milechem ha'aretz. The word aretz is unnecessary. When melo you move on the koyal lechem ha'aretz, it would have said you eat from its bread. Milachma would be understood that it's referring to the bread of the land. Also, when you understand the question of the commentary on the Zohar known as Ramosha Zakuto and Pashas Eikim, it will be when you eat, then you will raise up a truma, you will give an offering of the challah to the kohen. So the Ramaz asks, that seems to be out of order. Seemingly, the order is the opposite. First has to be that you have to take the challah. And then afterwards you can eat. So why does it say when you eat, then you will take challah? First take challah, then you can eat. Another question. He talks about different things that will return in times of the third Beis Hamikdash, and it also speaks about what the Kohanim will get, the Levim will get, all the different things. And he speaks about challah, and he says by giving challah, it's lahaniach bracha el beisecha, to place a bracha to your home, in your home. Question that Rebbe asked, what's the connection of this topic specifically to challah? In other words, why does challah evoke brachas in a different way or in a unique way than everything else you do? In a different, additional question, why does it say your home? Why is the bracha something that's connected with the home? In general, the expression is, you are blessed. And Elohim should give you. Why does it say your home? Seemingly, it should just say directly, you, the Jewish person, will receive the bracha. The Rebbe goes on, to be understood by first prefacing what is the idea of the mitzvah of chal. So he's going to bring over here a medrash and a Yerushalmi that says that Adam Harishon, in regards to the world, is like the challah is to the dough. Adam Harishon was like a piece of earth taken from the world and brought to a higher state. The same thing, the piece of dough is removed from the rest of the dough and it's brought to a higher state and it's made into challah. He said in the Mevorah, Medrash Yerushalmi, Sha'adam Harishon Chalas, Shalom. Let's explain the Medrash in Yerushalmi. The Adam Harishon was the challah of the world. Inyan mitzvahs challah. That's the idea of the mitzvah of challah. The takana kilkul shoya ba'adam Harishon dechetes adas, to repair that which was ruined by Adam Harishon through the sin of the tree of knowledge. So therefore, it had to be repaired through the mitzvah of challah. And specifically, women have this mitzvah. Why? Since this ruining was through chava, that's why this mitzvah was given to women, so that also the repair for what was ruined should be through them. Challah is one of the three mitzvahs that were given into the domain of the women. The acronym for the three mitzvahs that are unique and specific to women is Ches Nun Hey. Oy Hachein, or you flip it around, Hachein means the word grace or favor. Who the three mitzvahs are Chala, that's the Ches, Nida, that's the state of Nida, Taras Mishpacha, and Hadlakas on there, and the kindling of the Shabbos and Yom Tov candles. In a similar vein, like it says that she ruined Adam Rishon, or she made Adam Rishon, or she brought Adam Rishon, who was the Chal of the world, and she ruined it. The same thing, Adam Rishon is called the blood of the world, the Gemara says. Because it says that Adam Rishon was the one that davened that there should be rain come down. So blood to a person is like rain to the earth. So Adam Rishon was like responsible for the rain of the world, so he was considered the blood of the world. Adam one nefesh, like it says, the blood is the soul, so that is the soul of the world. Mitzvahs in a similar vein, she was given the mitzvah of nida, which also has to do with blood. Since she ruined Adam Rishon, that was also called the Chal of the world, like we said before. Therefore, she was given the mitzvah of Chal. In a similar vein, the Chazal says, since she extinguished the light of the world, which is Adam Rishon, that's why she was given Shabbos candles to kindle. And the repair that occurs through these mitzvahs will be it's so much higher than the way things were beforehand. In other words, that as high as Adam Rishon and mankind and the Yidden were before Adam Rishon ate from the tree of knowledge, but now through women having the three mitzvahs of Chal, Nida, and Hadlakas Haner, now Adam Rishon is elevated so much higher than he was before the sin. Yeser says so Yeser is so much more greater, so much more powerful. It's explained in the advantage of the Baal Tshuva over the Tzaddik. That the Baal Tshuva the place where a Baal Tshuva stands, a tzaddik, a complete tzaddik cannot stand. So therefore, you have the same thing over here. You have this idea that the women, through them being involved in these three mitzvahs, they bring up the world, they bring up Adam, and they bring up mankind to the level of Baal Tshuva, which is higher than the way Adam Rishon was before the sin. Now that I've elaborated on the connection between Adam Rishon specifically on Chal. Why is Adam Rishon called the Chal of the world? It's like it's explained in Medrash. Initially, there was a vapor that rose up from the earth and irrigated the earth, made it moist. And only following the moistening of the earth through the vapor, then it was Vayitzer Hashem Elokim as Adam Afram Adam, and Hashem Elokim formed Adam dust from the earth. Through Hashem taking the dust of the earth and water, that was, like we said, the vapor that rose up, and he combined them. That's like kneading. In a similar vein, the mitzvah of Chala was also given. First, the woman mixes the dough and the flour with water. Then magvas chalas, then she raises up and removes the challah. The mavor b'mishnah, like it's explained in the Mishnah. Through what was ruined in Adam Rishon, it wasn't just Adam Rishon that was ruined, but also Nasa Kilkul B'Chola Olam, the entire world became ruined through it. Because all neshamas were included in Adam Rishon. Like it says concerning Eov, when Eov was questioning Hashem about his suffering, So Hashem told him, Eifa Yisa biyasdi aretz. Where were you when I founded the earth? Which means, in a simple sense, Hashem was telling him, don't try to understand me. Were you even around when I had to create the world? So you have no part in any of the creation. How do you expect to understand how creation works, how the world works? But on a deeper level, when it says Eifoy Hayisa, Eifoy has a certain meaning which the Rebbe is going to add over here. She'amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Eev, Hashem told Eev, Heichen Hoisa Eifoy Shalcha Ba'adam Rishon. Where was your portion? Where was your primary thing? Called an Eifa in Adam Rishon. Was it Beroishe Chulu? Was it your Eifa in Adam Rishon? Eza Aver, in what limb was your Eifa located? Meaning that all people of all times, all the neshamas were at once time part of Adam Rishon. Therefore, when Adam Rishon messed up, it affected the entire world, all future neshamas. Therefore, therefore, the repair for what went wrong was also a repair in the entire world. This is one explanation why it says in the mitzvah of Kalala Bracha El Beisecha. We spoke about why does it say to your house instead of Hashem is going to give you a bracha. Why does it say give a bracha to your house? To Inyan B'chachma Yibana Bais. It says with wisdom a house will be built. And that pasuk is referring to that Hashem's wisdom was how the house, meaning this world, was built. So we see that a house can refer to the world, that's a general world. And through the mitzvah of Chala, that he repairs what was initially the ruination in the Chala of the world. So he effects that should be placing a bracha to your house. What does it mean to your house? That now the Chala, since it's repairing everything that was ruined, it's repairing the world in general. Why does it say specifically raising up a truma? Because through the mitzvah of Chala, we are causing the world to be elevated, and not just elevated in an ordinary fashion, and in a much higher way than how high the world was prior to the Chet Eitzadas. This is the advantage of Baal Tshuva over Tzadikim. Like we spoke about earlier, that the place that Baal Tshuva stand in, it's even complete Tzadikim cannot stand them. Second paragraph. The service of a person, there's 3 lines. One is like it says in the pasuk, Sur Merah, turn away from bad. Second line is Asay Toiv, do good. And the third thing is Baki Shalom, search out peace. These are also the 3 lines upon which the world stands and the world exists. This turning away from bad, doing good, searching out peace, that is the avodah tzaddik. He does everything straight, he does everything right, he doesn't do the bad, he does the good, and so on. Also Baal Tshuva, that he seemingly messed up. Even by him, there's also the Surmara and the etc. The Gam Etzli Yeshnam Gimel and Yonam Elu B'Tshuva. The Torah Parshas Balak, like it's explained in the Torah Parshas Balak, how in Tshuva there's a Tshuva that's associated with turning away from bad. There's a Tshuva that's associated with doing good, and a Tshuva that's associated with Bakishol. So the Rebbe connects these 3 things with the 3 mitzvahs of women. So he says in the middle of the paragraph, after the parentheses, this is also what to be able to repair this thing that was ruined. It's through the avoida in these 3 lines of Sur Merah, Seita, Bakishol. Where do we find that the women's mitzvahs have to do with these three lines? Idam nida mitzvahs loisa. The nida blood, that's the negative commandment. That's the literal idea of turning away from bad. That's the negative commandment in its most basic sense. Don't do what's wrong. Mitzvahs chala, mitzvahs asik. The mitzvah of chala is not a negative commandment, it's a positive commandment. Doing vasei toiv, that's the category of doing good. Adlokas haner, who in bakishol and kindling the Shabbos candles is the idea of searching out peace. As we know that in general, the reason why Shabbos candles were given was to keep the peace in the home, because if a person is in their house and it's dark, so then it can lead to arguments and people getting hurt and so on and so forth. So the Shabbos candles has to do with the idea of peace, and it's also connected with Torah, which is peace. Torah is the center line. He said there's three lines, and there's the right line is Gemils Chasadim, the left line is Avoida, the center line is Torah, which is the idea of peace, which is also the idea of Shabbos candles, which Rambam Masifri, like the Rambam writes in the name of the Sifri. The entire Torah was only given to make peace in the world. So we see the connection between Torah and peace. That's also the idea of lighting the Shabbos candles. That's the idea of Torah's illumination. This is why it says that a person that is careful in lighting Shabbos candles will have children that are studying Torah, that are Talmidei Chachamim, because the Torah is light as well. Through Torah, we are kindling the candle, we are lighting the candle to illuminate the entire world. So that's the three mitzvahs that elevate and transform to a higher state than things were before the sin. Just like how things were ruined in this world, it was through the actions of those down here below. So too, the repair has to be through the avoid of those below. It's not, though we know that if not for Hashem helping a person, it's impossible for him to defeat the Yetzer Hara. So therefore, one might question the idea of saying that the repair is being done through us down here below. So the Rebbe says, in general, it's the avodah of those below. Through that, he affects a raising up in the world. So even though Hashem is helping us, but it's really our doing. And because we are the ones that are doing it, so we are making an ascent in the world, because that's the nature of when we raise things up. When we raise things up, it has to be from the bottom up. That's how we are. We are at the bottom and we are raising up the world. But the raising up has to be specifically from at the bottom, because when you want to pick something up, you pick it from the top. It's a very big thing. It could separate, and the bottom can remain below. If you want to pick it up entirely, you got to pick it up from below. This itself, there are two aspects. Lechem and Shemayim, v'lechem and earth. There's bread from heaven and there's bread from earth, and we're going to talk about this in connection with the idea of chal. But first, he's going to say, what is the idea of bread from heaven? Lechem and Shemayim u'inyan hamon. The idea of the bread from heaven, which we learned about in last week's parsha, that's the mon. Such a degree that there are those that say that when they ate the mon, they made the bracha, hamoitzi lechem min hashamayim. That's the mon that comes from the heaven, which means hamshacha, it's drawing down milmayla lamata, from above to below. Yet, even in the bread from heaven, which you would say it's not about the tachtoinim, it's not about us below doing the avodah, even that. Also, in the mon, there's also the avodah of below, What's the avodah below? That's the bracha that we make on by benching on the month. Like Chazal say, the Moshe Tikkun Lam Yisrael Birchas Hazon B'Shosh Yordamon. Moshe Rabbeinu established for the Yidden the first bracha in benching, which is Hazon Soilim Kuloi, when the mon came down. The second bracha that concludes with the word Baruch Atah Hashem Ala Oretz V'Ala Mazen, it speaks already about Eretz Yisrael. That was only established by Yeshua when they went into Eretz Yisrael. Barak La'achri is the Tiknul and Birchas Ha'aretz B'Shosh Nitzvul Ha'aretz. Only afterwards, when the Yid went to Eretz Yisrael, that they established for them the bracha of Ala Oretz V'Ala Mazen. So what do we see? The main point what we see is that even in the mon that came from heaven, there was still our involvement. Harishagam alamon hoya inyan habracha. Also for the mon, there was the idea of bracha. Shemavarach es Hakadosh Baruch Hu shuzon ha'soilem kula b'tuvai. He thanks and benches Hashem that He sustains the world and it's entirely in His goodness. Lechem levav enosh and the bread supports a person's heart and keeps him alive. Elosh is idea lechem min hashamayim, but it's how is he being kept alive? It's being kept alive through the bread that's coming from heaven. Ubracha in yon avodas hamata, and a bracha is about the avodah from down here below. So too, it's in a simple sense. There was another avodah below. That was the collecting of the mon. The collection of the mon was in every single yid, regardless of what level, how great a person was. As we soon going to mention, what the Chazal say, that depending on what level person you were, that's what type of delivery service you had for your mon. If it was right at your doorstep or further away. The collection was everyone had to collect. It's only concerning where it says in the pasuk that the nation spread out and they collected and they ground it in a mill. But even the tzaddikim collecting was in each and every one, which indicates again the collecting shows the avoid of a person down here. Despite all of this that we said, everybody had to collect. That shows them the avodah from below. In addition to that, there was also the idea of making a bracha, again showing the avodah below. The primary idea of the mon, ulechem and hashamayim, is bread from heaven. So that's not yet where challah comes into the picture. In a kolzeh, all of this that took place with the bread from heaven, with the mon, it's only an introduction and a preface until they arrive to a settled land. Then it became the time of the harvest, plowing and sowing. Tanis to do with the Pascha the Mishnah in the Gemara Shabbos, where it talks about all the prohibited labors. He goes in the order of the labors first, having to do with preparing bread. He starts off first with plowing and then sowing and so on. Sowing with an O, not with an E. Inyan lechem and ours, this idea of bread from the ground. When you're dealing with bread from the ground, we have to forewarn, and it has to tell us when the earth has to have a Shabbos for Hashem. In other words, the Shemitah. Sheishan Tizra Goimer, 6 years you will sow, and then the 7th it will be a Shemitah year. Move on. Seemingly, the pasuk that says that when you come to the land, Shabbos Lashem, and the earth will have a Shabbos, and then it says Sheishan Tizra Sadecha. It doesn't make any sense. The order. The order is just the opposite. First, it has to be 6 years you will sow. And only afterwards, in the 7th year, will be a sabbatical year, will be a Shemitah. So why does it say, you don't do immediately Shemitah as soon as you come into Eretz Yisrael? but rather it's about keeping your focus. It doesn't mean as soon as you come to Eretz Yisrael, you're going to do Shemitah, but it means where is your mind at? What is your focus at? So he says, but Inyan who the idea behind this is should be able to be the 6 years in such a type of way that will result and will be followed by and the next year will be the 7th year. It's only when initially you establish in your mind that it's going to be a sabbatical year eventually. He enters Eretz Yisrael with the mind that I am here to fulfill those mitzvahs that are dependent upon the land of Eretz Yisrael. So just like it was concerning Shemitah, so too it's concerning the taking of Chala. We asked, why say Ba'ochlachem Tarimu Truma? Because when you eat, then you will take Chala. It's not that way. First you take Chala, then you're allowed to eat. So he says, there's the idea, the way it's normally done, first you take off Chala and then you eat. This type of avoid of removing the Chala before we eat. That is similar to what the Nefesh Halakis, the godly soul, does on its own. It's similar to what the Chazal say, do not eat before you have asked for your blood, meaning before you have prayed for your life. It's prohibited to eat before davening unless it's necessary to be able to daven. Because davening needs to precede eating. So just like davening needs to precede eating, the same thing, the removal of challah also has to precede eating. That's also the idea of the removing the challah before eating. Afterwards, there's the idea of taking off challah that follows the eating, which is what the pasuk said. When you eat, then you will take off challah, meaning there's a challah that is spiritually following the eating. What does that mean? Initially, the food becomes through the eating his own blood and flesh, like his own flesh. Like it's explained, that through eating the food, which was like from the category of only growing things, of vegetation, of tzemeach, now becomes elevated and it's alive because part of a living human being. And even more so, the food that he's eating is elevated to be a human being. Once it's gone through all those stages of elevation, it's gone from Sameach to Chai to Medaber, then you have to bring it to an even higher level. You have to have the raising up and you have to have the taking off challah, meaning it's similar to benching after eating. That the benching that's after eating is not just a making a blessing and thanks, but what the brachas after eating, what benching after eating does, is it elevates the food to an even higher state. There's a miles through the person benching after eating, he elevates himself along with the food that he ate in the ultimate state of elevation as that could be. That's why it says when you eat from the bread of the land. And we said it didn't have to say the land because we already know that's talking about the land. It could have just said melachma, from its bread. Why does that say from the bread of the land? Through this love of the raising of the challah. That follows the whole process of eating and elevation that's prior to that. Now, once I'm doing the Haravas Chala afterwards, the benching afterwards, I'm Hareu Magbiya Sa'aretz, I'm elevating the earth. I'm elevating what is in the lowest part, like we said before, that when you raise something up, you need to raise it up all the way from the bottom. Now we can explain the connection with the kite. Who do we give the challah to? We give it to the kite. The kahana shluchah the rachmanin. Kahanim are considered messengers and representatives of Hashem. Yesh inyan achilas hamizbeach, yesh inyan achilas hakayanim. There's the idea of what, and whenever there is a carbon, for example, so there is carbonis that only consumed by the mizbeach. Then there's carbonis that are consumed not just by the mizbeach, but also the kayanim consume it. And in a similar vein, there's the things that are not just carbonis, but like challah and truma and these type of mitzvahs, where we give the kayan to consume. What's the idea? So the eating of the kainim is a very big thing. The common denominator between when the mizbeach consumes and when the kainim consume something, the shneihem mechaprim, both of them are things that atone for the person. So it's brought down, the Chazal say this, kaihanim oichlim v'bailim meskaprim. When the kahanim eat from the karbonas, those karbonas kahanim eat from, so it brings atonement to the one that brought the carbon. It's not just the mizbeach brings atonement; the kahanim brings atonement. It says, we know that when the mizbeach consumes, it atones. And in a similar vein, the kahanim's eating of the challah. It's the adam arishon mimkaim. It says Adam Arishon, where was he created from? So it says that Hashem took the earth from the place of the Harabayis, where eventually the Evan Hashtia would be, where the Mizbeach would be. Or not the Evan Hashtia, or the place of the Mizbeach in the Harabayis, was where the earth was gathered from for Adam Arishon, because his kapara of mankind comes from the Mizbeach, and therefore he was put together from that. So the Mizbeach is about kapara, and Adam Arishon is about being created from his place of kapara of atonement. So too, it's in the consumption of the kayanim that also brings about atonement. That's brought down Gemara Yavamis Shebezeh Shneim Shavim. That in this there's a common denominator between the Kayanim and the Mizbeach, that both of them bring atonement for the one who brought the carbon. Yet, despite that common denominator, there's still a difference. There's a difference between how the Mizbeach would consume the carbon versus the Kayanim. That the consumption of the carbon mizbeach was through the lion that consumed the carbonas, that there was an image of a fiery lion that came down from above and it consumed the carbonas. What does this lion indicate? To Achilles HaMalachim, it indicates the malachim that are likened to wild beasts, and they would consume and elevate the animals from the mizbeach. Or the Maili and even higher, B'chayis of Merkava, that it's talking about in the wild beasts, in the divine chariot, that there was a human face and an eagle's face and an oxen face, and there was a lion's face. So that lion's face of the divine chariot was the one that brought about the consumption, the elevation of the karbonis. Ariel, you mean we know the lion's face was to the right. As opposed to how the consumption of the kohen causes the elevation of or the atonement of the bailim, of the one who brings the carbon. It's the consumption of the person down here below, that the person down here below is the one that's consuming. Because Adam down here, human beings down here, are Adama La'eli. The word Adam is in the word Adam, I'm similar to. That means that the Adam down here, the Kohen down here, reflects and corresponds to what says that in the Nevuah of Yechezkel he saw a supernal man upon the throne. And the throne was riding upon the divine chariot that had the images of this lion's face. So that means that even though it was a human being eating it, it caused that the highest most level, the level of the Adam that's even higher than the lion's face in the divine chariot, would consume and bring atonement for the person. This consumption that was done through the Koyanim consuming is higher than what the Mizbeach consumed. Because that's higher than the throne that would sit upon the divine chariot that had, or that was a divine chariot that had these images of the lion's face. And the lion's face is below the throne. So it says in the time of the Beis Hamikdash existed, the Mizbeach atoned for a person. But now his table atones for him instead, the Chazal say. How is that done? The challah. Now, through the consumption of challah, yeshnam beizan yonim, the achilas adam, the achilas mizbeach, they are both components. The human consumption and the consumption of the mizbeach, even though the kohen doesn't eat challah these days because we are all in tumah and he can't eat it while he's in tumah. But the Rebbe is considering it that since we have the mitzvah of challah, so all the components of the mitzvah are present, including as if the kohen would have eaten it, and therefore that our table can bring about atonement because our table has the bread that's a result of the challah, which has this very high quality. So now it continues, that's what it says, when you come to the land, the first of your dough will be challah, meaning that the first piece you remove from the dough has to be put away for challah. Through the mitzvah of challah, we repair what they ruined in the challah of the world, which is Adam Marish. And how does one repair? That's the idea of shuhin, not shuva. That's the idea of shuva. Since we're talking about shuva, that's why it says when you come. Rashi says on the word biv vayachem, when you come, miyad b'shenichnesu ba va'achlu melachma nischayvu b'challah. Immediately when Yidden entered Eretz Yisrael and they cut whatever wheat they found and they prepared it and they made dough out of it, immediately they had the obligation of challah. They did not have to wait until they totally inherited the land and settled the land. Other mitzvahs, it says, other agricultural laws, other things that were given to the Kohanim and so on. First, they had to, there were 7 years of war to conquer the land. Then there were 7 years of dividing and settling the land. And only after this period of 14 years, that's when the different agricultural mitzvahs came into play. But challah was not that. It was immediate. Why is challah immediate? Because we just now said challah is a tikkun for Adam Harishon's challah becoming ruined. And how do you fix that up? That's with shuva, and shuva is immediate as well. The inyan at shuva b'shayt echad or b'rij echad. The idea of shuva is in 1 hour and 1 moment. By days of poilim sheyil aniach bracha beisacha. Through this, we effect that there should be place a bracha to your home. What is the home referring to? We explained earlier. The koyal oilam is referring to the world. The b'chachma yibon bayis. That with wisdom, a home is built by the closest, the general home of the world. Mitzvah of challah, we draw down bracha in the world. That's also what it says. Bereshis was the Elokim created. The Ois Harishon shall Bereshis is always based. The first letter of the word Bereshis is the letter base. The Rosh Tevis shall Bayis Ubracha. That the letter base is also the Rosh Tevis of the word house and the word blessing. That's what it says to allow for and bring about a bracha to your house. The house that we're referring to over here is not my personal home. We're talking about bringing bracha into the world. This is not just the bracha that was in the world from the perspective of creation. We said Bereshis bara Elokim. The letter Beis already indicated that as soon as the world was created, it was a home and they had bracha in it. No. As we said before, that whenever there's a descent, the ascent is so much higher. The Baal Tshuva that's higher than the Tzaddik. The intention of the descent through the sin, for the sake of the ascent that follows. If so, you can't say that the ascent that occurs afterwards through the chala is going to be in the same way like it was when it was Bereshis, Beis meaning bracha bayis. So what was the gain in the entire descent? Surely we have to say that the ascent that followed it was much higher than the place that was the descent. In other words, the place from which the descent was. So you, let's say, went from floor 1 down to the basement, you went now up to floor 10. I'm sorry. And this is also what it says, this is the history of the Shemayim, the Oretz. It says Toldus Mali. The word Toldus says with the letter Vav. Sometimes you could have a Chaylim without a Vav or with a Vav. Sometimes in the Torah it will say it with or without. That why does it say it with a Vav? The Olam Amiluy Nibra, to indicate that the world was created complete and full. It wasn't missing anything. Ela told us Peretz. Afterwards, it says this is the history and the story of the offspring of Peretz. Toldus Mole, it's also a full Toldus, which is going about the level of Peretz is from whom Mashiach is going to come. Peretz was from him came about the house of David HaMelech, from which Mashiach comes, meaning that the Mila of Mashiach is exemplified by Peretz. You can't say that what's going to happen by Mashiach is the same level like it was at the beginning of creation. It's impossible to say that then what's going to be when Mashiach comes, it's going to be only the way it was at the beginning of creation, the same Toldus Mole, the same fullness and perfection and completion. Rather, it's going to be higher than the way it was at the beginning of creation. That's what it means to place a bracha into your home more than what was in the world initially. The Torah is everlasting. Like it's explained in Tanya, that they came mitzvahs chala kipshuta, fulfilling the mitzvah of chala in its simple sense. Also in the inner aspect, that the first of your dough will be chala. What does this mean? He gives to Hashem the beginning and the first of everything. The Gambazman, also in time, he gives what comes first. The miyad shakam immediately when he arises from his sleep, he gives us away to Hashem. This is the idea that a certain Amoida said, that I always wanted to make sure that my davening should be close to my bed, meaning as soon as I arise, I daven. I don't waste it on other mundane matters. So with the same thing, that's like challah, because I'm giving the first of my day, just like the first of my dough I'm giving to Hashem, the first of my day I'm giving to Hashem. By days of through that we come to place a blessing into your home. But chila initially, first in the home that's literally his own home. The Gula Protis is talking about one's individual redemption. The Gula Close would be as Mashiach's kingdom because Mamish afterwards to the general redemption, the coming Mashiach's kingdom speedily Mamish. Then there will be much good materially and spiritually. Like explain the Rambam, the Cholamadanim, Mitzvim Ka'afar, that all enjoyable things will be as available as dust. They will comprehend the mind of the Creator as much as humanly possible and capable. Until what the Rambam concludes over there, that the earth will be filled with the knowledge of Hashem, like the waters cover the sea.